Hello, everybody. Welcome to Well with Nature podcast 2. I'm Caroline Cook, and today it's lovely to have Laurie Clémence back with us. And we're going to carry on our conversation from last time, where we were exploring the fascinating world of Bach Flower Remedies and also emotional well-being. So, Laurie is the founder of Denude Magazine, a publication and cultural platform exploring thoughtful living, culture, and longevity. She's a particular interest in women's stories, emotional well-being, and the way we find and express our authentic voices. So it's really lovely to have you back with us, Laurie. We did have a really interesting discussion last time, didn't we?
We did. And it was really nice to have that sort of structured conversation because we've had previous conversations before, but it's really nice to sort of let people in on our thought process and the way in which we work together. So yeah, I really
Yes.
enjoyed that and happy to be back. So thank you for having me.
Oh no, well, it's lovely. And maybe shall I just sort of summarize the things we talked about last time, and then
Yes, of
I've got
course.
a few more questions for you, if that's okay.
That's perfect with me.
So last time we did have a really interesting discussion about the Bach Flower Remedies,
Mhm.
and about how their really subtle energy helped bring self-awareness to our emotions in a landscape, and almost how a consultation was helpful in that process to bring you more self-awareness and insight.
Mhm.
And then we went on and were looking specifically how important it is for women in society now, with this fast digital society, to look after our own needs and being able to have strong boundaries, being able to say no rather than people pleasing. And all of those things can actually then lead to, I know I've had irritable bowel syndrome, chronic
Mhm.
fatigue, burnout, all these autoimmune conditions. And then we started to look at how we actually slow down, focus more on our emotional well-being, listen to our body, listen to ourselves, and connect with ourselves. So we really sort of just got started, didn't we, last time?
It is such a big topic, and you could,
It is really.
there's so many ways in which you could discuss it, and I think we could discuss it for a really long time. Um,
Yes.
it was really great to cover sort of introduce these remedies to people because I don't know if I wasn't aware that you could combine these essences to create an individual formula for whatever problems you're going through. So I think that's really important for women. I think it's really important to be seen and to be heard. And like I said last time, I think even having a consultation and hearing your story out loud really helps you to articulate what's going on in your head and someone reflect it back to you. And then to have, like I say, something made for you is very indulgent, but also very very powerful in a way. We have something that reflects our individual needs, and I think as women we do need to be aware of our needs much more than we have been taught to be.
Yes, definitely. And you say indulgent, and I think we tend to think that, don't we? We tend to sort of being frugal and being looking after everybody else, and actually to
Yeah,
invest in ourselves, in our own well-being is
that's
actually
it.
really, sort of, it feels like a treat, but actually it's vital, isn't it, to our own, future, and being able to have our role in society, and then role as maybe, as mothers or wives or partners or
Yeah,
daughters or whatever, to everybody else as well.
absolutely. We
Um,
have to look after ourselves first as well.
yes, definitely, definitely. So, a few things I just wanted to get your thoughts, really, Laurie. So, it's really interesting for me, to get to know you and to find out, as a young businesswoman. I mean, what sort of things do you do to look after your own emotional well-being? I know you're freelance. I know that there's a lot of pressure on you with this business
So
that you
big,
run, and
yeah.
then also I know you've been to Paris, you've won awards, like youth awards, is it, with France and England for
Yeah,
youth
so
leader, all of
it's
these things. So tell us, how do you manage your own emotional well-being?
it's a really good question, and I was made a Franco-British Young Leader this year, and that's from the Franco-British Council. So it's our responsibility, or my responsibility going forward, to nurture the relationship between France and the United Kingdom, culturally, on a business level, and I'm really passionate about that. I really feel we have much more in common than we don't. But there's that sort of part of my life, and then there's running a business, and there's, my family who are very important to me. I have friendships that, I want to nurture, and there's so much on my plate at all times, and there's so many little angles that I could all take it down. And I think for me, nature is one of the most important ways that I ground myself back into reality. So I feel pulled a lot, and nature helps me to just sit back and sit in, God's kingdom, and to be like, this is where I'm meant to be, and I don't have to be anywhere else with the business or with anyone else when I'm in nature. And animals, are a huge part of my life. I adore animals, and that recently, and through you and through the events that I've been attending at Chatsworth, I've become suddenly quite interested in gardening. And it's something that I was like, I'm 32, so I'm a certified early grandma, and that's fine. But my mum and my grandma have always been interested in plants and gardens, and that for me is how I ground myself back into the real tangible physical world, instead of feeling like I'm in a digital sphere all the time. So gardening, nature, animals, they really, really help me to come back to my center. So I hope that answers your question.
Yes, yes, no, that's great. And in terms of the thinking about the Bach Flower Remedies, I know you've sort of used them yourself in the past with like Rescue Remedy, and then we've had a consultation and made personalized treatment bottles for you.
Yes.
Which do you think, which remedies do you think have been most helpful to you in terms of, your emotions or general well-being, if that's
I,
not too much of a personal question?
No, it's not. It's one that I did have to think about, and I thought, wow, like, it's such a broad question. If you spoke about each one that we've worked with, but I actually did write a bit down for this, because I thought, this is there's a lot to be said. So elm for me has probably been the most instantly recognizable for me. It's been, when there's that temporary overwhelm and you're like, wow, I really can feel that there's something pulling me outside of my, comfort zone and center. And I think it's not necessarily about someone who lacks confidence and capability when you're using this. You're thinking, oh my gosh, I'm quivering and I can't do this. But it's not about that. It's about bringing you back to, I can do this. I'm just carrying a lot at the moment.
Mm,
And I
mm,
need to be able to recognize that I'm carrying a lot, and to separate that emotion, from the actual story. Because you can feel totally overwhelmed, and that can send you in a flurry, but you're not
mm,
actually an overwhelmed person. You're just overwhelmed in that moment.
mm,
And I think Elm has really helped me to, not see the small tasks as so overwhelming. And it feels, sometimes things can feel enormous. So it's about
mm,
separating that temporary overwhelm from my sort of deeper sense of competence. I'm not incompetent. I just feel it a little bit in this moment. And that's been the one that I sort of recognized, because we use it in both of my personalized remedies. And I was like, that's been a really, really helpful one for me. And then there's walnut. That's been really meaningful for me, because I think it's traditionally associated with change and transition, which I'm going through a lot of right now. I'm considering where I want the rest of my life to be, and where I want to build a home and a family. And I think when you're being pulled in every direction, that's helped me to sort of sit and think, what do I actually want in the long term, not just now. You've got to think, how is this transition period preparing me for what is to come, in the long run, and,
mm,
and having the bigger vision of my life in mind. So that's been really helpful. And I think it's helped me to have emotional boundaries, to think it's okay to take some time for myself, and to, stop worrying about everyone else's needs first, worry about myself
mm,
first. And to
mm,
just to set boundaries with people, and to be anchored in my own values, and to think, this is where life is taking me. I need to trust it. So it's helped with
mm,
trust. And then I always refer back to Star of Bethlehem, because I know that's in the, the typical rescue remedy that we
mm,
most often look to. And I think that has just always helped me to sit in panic, and to
mm,
recognize that as not out of something, not out of I'm not out of control. I might feel it in that moment when something is
Hmm.
very challenging or urgent, but not it's not totally out of my control. I can stay present with that. And I always reach to it just because I've lived with it for so long in my life. It's always been there. So yeah, they're
Yes.
the three that I really know I enjoy working with.
Yes, yes. And it's really interesting because it shows that you've got an awful lot of insight and self-awareness, haven't you? The way you're speaking about these things and awareness. I think I know I found for myself that is one of the amazing thing about the Bach Flower Remedies. It really helps you to get that self-awareness and actually to really identify rather than just feeling stressed. Because you might just sort of say, "Oh, I feel stressed." But
Mm,
actually, it's like, well, why are you feeling stressed? And like you say, it's actually because of overwhelm, not because of feeling like I'm not confident or I'm no good at this, but more just like the number of things that you're doing and the amount of responsibility that you have.
yes.
And then, the changes you're going through. And then also this sort of like fear and panic. But that's a huge amount of self-awareness. Whereas I think a lot of people might just think, oh, I feel stressed.
Mm, mm,
And in a way, that can feel overwhelming, can't it? Whereas when you identify
um,
the specific emotion of
mm,
what's causing the stress, it helps you to feel a lot more empowered and in control, doesn't it? And then,
exactly.
obviously with the remedy as well that you can take and sit to sort of as you sort of, bring those emotions into balance.
Absolutely, absolutely. And like I say, I think as women, we really need to, refocus the emotion. Our emotions are telling us something. They're messengers as much as they are
Mm,
something to panic about. And
yes.
taken an awful lot of self work to sort of get to the point where I can identify where this story is coming from. Like, oh,
Yes.
I'm incompetent or I'm not worthy. All of these things, they're from stories that we hear, particularly as women. We're taught to be agreeable, we're taught to not voice our needs. And you have to think, what do I actually need? What is this story trying to sort of it's trying to help you in a way to reconfigure the story and to write a
Yes.
new story
Yes.
yourself. So yeah,
Definitely. And we're quite good, aren't we? We might notice if we've got like a headache or a pain in our shoulder or neck or our body, we respond to those, don't we? But if there's an emotion, we often don't recognize it or we don't delve into it or we push it down or we push it away. And yet it's the same way that the body's wanting to actually communicate with us, isn't it? And tell us something and and and
such a good
and and
point.
help us
Such a
to
good
look
point.
after ourselves and adapt, because of that sort of signal really that our body's telling us. So
Absolutely.
yes, yes. Now you as a journalist and founder of Denude, you've and I don't think I quite realized this of how involved in that you've been as listening and hearing all people's stories. And just wondering, I mean, I know it's a really big topic and we haven't got that long, but in terms of thinking about emotional well-being and finding your voice,
Mhm.
how do you think, maybe some of the experiences you've had of people, how does that link? Do you think there is a link between that about emotional well-being and how much we actually are able to express ourselves or find our own voice in society?
I really do. And I was speaking to somebody about this last week that you can become incredibly blocked in your throat, in my opinion, if you don't feel safe enough to express your needs, your wants, or what you actually believe about the world around you. And I think that as women, we are very guilty. I keep referring back to that of suppressing what we actually believe. So we can know that we believe something, but you don't feel safe enough to express that. So
Mm,
as a journalist, my best interviews have always been when I've given someone, total agency and freedom to say what they want to say and to be an open listener, to be unjudgmental,
mm,
to feel like they don't have to adapt themselves in a interview because we do that. We naturally think, how am I going to best present? And
mm.
what do I want to come across like? And we all do that to some extent. We have to, it's how that
Yes.
survived over the years. But it's also that you want people to be comfortable and that they don't have to perform. Life shouldn't have to be a performance all the time. And
Mm,
I think I really have to. I try to give that to my interviewees and say, what do you want to tell me? Where is this work coming from? And to give them space and agency to do that. And people might not have been able to articulate themselves before in whatever area of life. So it's about giving people a space to feel safe
Yeah.
and to be able to articulate themselves. But there's definitely, I think there's definitely a link between emotional well-being and the voice. And I think you really need good people around you to be able to speak to openly and kindly. And that's what you're good at, Caroline.
Oh,
So that's why I came to you.
it's, but it's so true, isn't it? It's actually, feeling it's okay and you feel safe to be who you really are or say what you really want to say. Because I think so often, like you say, you want to come over a certain way, or you want to, like maybe thinking about growing up, you want to be, please people or not offend anybody, or you've sort of like fit in with how maybe your parents expect you to be, and you don't want to say
Yeah,
something because you don't want to offend them. And so more and more we lose our actual true identity and our true self, maybe even with like good education and everything, where theoretically we should we should have been empowered
mm-hmm.
to speak up and have our own voice and everything. But I don't know why. I mean, maybe I'm sure maybe it's different now with younger women, but I think there's still just a sense of fitting in and be an acceptance, really. So you then end up molding yourself to fit in with the people you're around, rather than actually being really clear, like, no, I don't agree with that. I don't actually think that.
Yeah, it's true. And I think a lot of people feel like that in universities today. There's many experiences like that. And I could speak to that for quite a good portion of this, but I won't because of time. But I do know that there are women who feel like that. And, you particularly might have people from a different background, socioeconomic background, feeling, I don't know if I can express that safely here. There's always that to
Yes.
consider. And
Yes.
their experience might be very different from someone they're at university with. And the other
Yes.
person would never, you know, think that. But yeah, very, very
Yes.
big topic, but I could
Yes.
about that for a long time. But yeah,
Yes.
definitely
So why
true.
do you think why do you think so many women do find it hard to trust their own intuition or find their own voice? We've talked a little bit about, you know, not feeling, accepted or safe, but what do you think's really sort of going on here about women not being able to express themselves?
I think women are taught to prioritize harmony over honesty. I think
Mm,
we're praised for being agreeable, for being emotionally available, for being accommodating, which is naturally things that we are. If we're motherly, nurturing, you're naturally like that. But I don't think that's a good thing. Those qualities are absolutely beautiful. But if it also teaches you to abandon your own needs and instincts and our gut feelings, which I think the remedies help, in my opinion, to bring me back to, is look,
mm,
I feel this is not right. I don't know why. It's just women's intuition, and I need to follow that. We're taught to ignore that and we've been taught to ignore that for such a long time. And I think
mm,
as
mm.
women, you can sometimes immediately know when something is wrong. You'll know when you're in an unsafe situation where a person is unsafe, and then you almost are taught to interrogate why you're thinking like that rather than the gut feeling. And it's like, if we were taught to trust our gut a lot more, I think we would be more honest and open in our voices. And I think it's sad that women have to question their own perception of a situation or how they're feeling rather than what's actually happening. And
Yes,
I
yes, because
think
I think the whole
time,
focus is on sort of like your mind or your rational thinking. And so
exactly.
whereas if you go to your mind, it would be like, oh no, that's ridiculous. That doesn't make sense at all. But when you've got a strong gut reaction, I think we're almost taught that's like an emotional female intuition sort of thing, and you can't rely on it. But actually, that gut reaction is the core of who
Mhm,
we are and our emotions. And that is actually, and I found from my experience, sometimes you think I've got this gut reaction, but is it fear
mhm.
of something? But actually, that gut reaction really, really was true. And I maybe, didn't actually listen to it initially, but then realized in retrospect, actually, my gut, you can really rely on that instinct that we have, especially as women, I think, to sort of
Right.
show us.
Yeah.
Yes, so I know we've sort of coming to the end, but I do want to sort of, I think it's very interesting, thinking about the difference in generations and different ages. And Do you think is it easier now for women? Do you think there has been changes, sort of from with younger generations and maybe stronger like feminism? And do you think there is sort of it is easier for younger women to express themselves, to find their voice, maybe also to feel like, they don't have to find a partner, get married, and all of this sort of pressure of society that you have to follow a certain path and you have to fit in. Do you think do you think it is different? Does it feel like there is more, you can be more authentic now, do you think?
I think both things are sort of true. I think, many women as they get older, they've been through enough experiences to sort of realize this is not working for me and I don't feel that's who I'm becoming. So they're less willing to sort of abandon themselves nowadays. I think that does come with experience and time. And you recognize patterns and you think, this is a story that I'm telling myself and it's not one that I want to repeat. But then I do think at the same time, younger generations have much more access to sort of language and sort of experiences that can help to recognize that earlier on. So even with your women's circles and things like this, I think women are more aware of the services and events industry, for me personally, that's been sort of instrumental in helping to formulate me having a better relationship with myself. So I think access online has largely
Mm,
changed how women do enter those circles because, you know, this is no offense to you, years ago, a woman's circle might have been something deemed quite like a 40-year plus thing. And I don't know if that's, that is the case with your age brackets, but I do think there is sort of women are more comfortable accessing these events and situations now. And I think with people pleasing and burnout, people are much more inclined to look after themselves a bit earlier, I hope.
yes,
And I
yes,
think perhaps they're realizing that the expectations put on them were never theirs. They were
mm,
perhaps the influence of the outside world. So
yes,
I think having the language to describe these things
yes,
is so important. So I think
yes,
there's two sides to it. I think there's much more access now, and people
yes,
are able to sort of, go towards their own, what they believe about life and what they want from life. But
yes,
and
yes,
there's older
definitely.
women who are perhaps undoing a bit of social conditioning around what's
Yes,
expected of them. So I think it's
yes,
I think it's good for anyone at any age to sort of have a really good
yes.
relationship with themselves and go inward and privately and think, what do I actually want from the world? And I was thinking about this just the other day, and I was thinking, there's so much that I've been conditioned to believe that I want, or how I should appear, particularly through Instagram and social media, and then I thought I don't actually relate to how that person is. I don't I Their life isn't what I want. So you really have to question what is my belief and want for the world, and
Yes.
what have I been told I want.
Yes, yes, thank you. And I think actually I think it's a really exciting time actually at the moment for women. I think it just feels
Agree.
like there's this new thing happening, of space for women, of women rising up and finding their voice. And I know, for me, it's been a lot of changes as I've got divorced
Mhm.
and a lot of change in my life and a lot of personal growth, a lot of finding my own identity, of
Mhm.
like not people pleasing, finding really finding my own voice. And, and then it's so lovely, like holding women's circles and then meeting you. And it's just so lovely, I think, across the different ages of women. I know when I've held women's circle and we've got women in their 20s, 30s, through to
Wow.
women in their 70s. And it's just so lovely for people to be able to share across the generations,
It means
and sort
cross
of
generational
understand and support
relationship.
each other and have that sort of openness and acceptance of it's okay, we don't have to pretend, we don't have to try and be anybody else, and to really just feel all we can really do. And I suppose one of my key sort of passions is that each person actually really finds their own true authentic self and is
Mhm.
able to be that self and that person in the world, because what's amazing is there's never ever going to be another one of any of us, is there?
I
We're all
know.
so, so completely unique, and yet somehow we're always feeling inadequate or comparing ourselves to everybody else. Whereas if each of us had that self-acceptance and could just blossom as like the flower that we are, then we can find sort of peace and fulfillment and give our unique gift to everybody else as well, can't we? So
That was beautifully
Yes.
said, Caroline. And sorry I interjected, but I was just thinking cross-generational relationships are so amazing and so they bring
Yes.
so much to people. And I have
Yes.
a great relationship with my grandparents, and it's just been amazing to discover that through you as well. And I know I don't want to call you old, but you're older than me, so it's
Yes.
it's really lovely. I
Yes.
think that really does bring a lot
Yes.
to women. So yeah, thank you
Yes,
so much.
yes, yes. So yeah, well, thank you so much, Laurie. It's lovely to chat
My
again.
pleasure. My pleasure.
And I'm sure we'll see you again. There's so many things we can keep on chatting about,
There is. There is.
but it's really lovely, and hopefully other women as well can have a chance to maybe find a women's circle that's near them,
That'd be lovely.
or or find out more about Bach Flower Remedies. And I think both of us really just want to encourage women of all ages on this sort of journey of self-discovery and wellness and wholeness. So
Absolutely, absolutely. And that's what I hope
yes,
for women, that they can find, the most beautiful part of themselves and keep sharing it with people, because it's what the world needs, is women, who feel, their individuality is unique and beautiful. And that's what actually matters, instead of conforming to what, they feel other people want. We don't need that version of
yes,
you.
and we don't have to
We
compare ourselves with other
feel the
women, and
best.
also we don't have to compete
Exactly.
with men and feel we need
Exactly.
to do things in a man's way, or that we're better than men or anything, but purely that we find our own way as women to be ourselves and to express ourselves, live our lives without feeling we have to do it in a male, traditional male way of things. And that could be a whole nother topic, couldn't
Oh,
it?
it is. It really is.
For business, for women in
It really
business.
is. Yeah. But thank you so
So
much, Caroline.
yes, well, lovely to chat again, and have a lovely rest of the day. And I know you're going to have a bit of a break over August, like as I
I
am as
am.
well. So
Yes.
let's make sure we have time in nature to sort of refresh and recharge. And maybe we'll be back again chatting in September.
I hope so. I hope so. Have a lovely summer, and I'll
Yes,
speak
and
to
you.
you soon. Take care.
Okay, bye
Bye.
then.